This is Gardening in America, and I'm Ed Hume. Today we're in Southwest Washington. I'm with Alice Ingalls of Alice's Perennial Wonderland. Alice, where's the nursery located?
I'm on the main road, which is Highway 503, between Orchards and Battleground in the Vancouver area.
Vancouver, Washington area, really, isn't it? You know, you feature a lot of different perennials, but right now I think most people don't realize how much stuff is in bloom.
Oh, there's tons of color at this time of year.
Yeah. You're standing right here next to one of my favorite of all of the Michaelmas daisies or fall asters.
This is Alma Potchke.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
And it has been blooming for 2 months. It'll keep on. I will probably deadhead some of it, and then it'll keep coming from below. It's such an unusual color.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And we should mention that here in the garden there are all kinds of other varieties and different colors.
I have a lot of asters.
Yeah. Look, I have to pull this one out and show it to our viewers too. Because this, I remember this 40 years ago.
Yes, that's a very
variety,
old-fashioned and hardy chrysanthemum.
What is the variety?
And it's called Clara Curtis.
Clara Curtis. Oh, it's beautiful. The single flower was at that time kind of rare, in fact. Which is the blue one here?
Oh, this is Perovskia.
Oh,
and that
gorgeous.
is a beautiful fall plant with a beautiful silver gray foliage. It gets tall, and it's such a good background and a beautiful filler in a flower arrangement.
Here in the garden and in the nursery also you have a lot of the different varieties of...
the Japanese anemones.
Aren't they beautiful in the fall?
This is Pink, the September Charm.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I have some white ones here, but they're falling apart.
Okay, we can show them. Which one is this?
This is Aconitum carmichaeli.
Very pretty, isn't it? And in the garden also you have a lot of different foliage colors that are kind of typical of this area. And the sedums are coming on now too, aren't they?
The sedums are coming on, and I think it's really important to have good foliage because it sets off your plants.
Alice, thank you for sharing all these with us because I think it's given our viewers an idea of just a few of the plants that really do provide color in the fall. And we sometimes overlook that completely.
I know, I don't think people really realize how much color you can have clear into November.
Oh yeah, thanks very much. We're with Alice Ingalls of Alice's Perennial Wonderland. This is the time of the year when you probably have harvested most of your vegetables like we have in this bed here. Now back here there's still some potatoes to be harvested, so I won't touch that bed yet. But let's begin getting the soil ready for next year. And one of the best ways to do that is if you have any compost or any fallen leaves even, add them to the soil and till them in or spade them in. And any organic humus such as manure or processed manure, excellent additives to the vegetable garden area. But then there's another step that you can do, and that's to add a cover crop. Now what does a cover crop do? It's green manure, first of all, meaning that the leaves will turn to compost after you spade them in next spring. But the other thing is that they replenish the nutrients in the soil and in fact they form nitrogen nodules on the roots of the plants. So they're creating nitrogen too for you. And the organic matter, of course, that they add to the soil, plus during the winter they suppress weeds. And what is a mix of a cover crop? Well, in this particular case, I'm using Australian field peas, and this also has hairy vetch in it. It also has a winter rye grain in it. In addition to that, it has crimson clover. So I've spaded the soil and I've loosely raked it. Kind of rough raked it, I'd say. And all we do then is to just kind of spread the seeds like this. And that'll give us a good mix over the top of this vegetable garden soil, like so. And I'll just take a minute to do almost all of the bed. I can in fact do it pretty well from here just by spreading the seed. And this will make a nice solid mass. It'll be very attractive, in fact. In addition to being very worthwhile. And after we have spread the seed throughout the entire bed like this, and this will cover, this package will cover up to about 600 square feet. All I do then is to take the rake and just rake the area, trying to get that seed, oh, most of it at least, if I can, about 1/4 of an inch into the soil. If a little bit of it, shows above, that's all right, or you could take a little soil from another bed and cover over the top a little bit if you want. And basically, that's all you need to do to plant cover crop. And boy, the value and the replacing of the nutrients in the soil is so worthwhile for you. The other thing I would do, and I'm not going to take a minute to do it, but I would also water this in, particularly on a day like today when it's nice and bright and sunny. Get that seed started. And then in springtime, all we do is to spade it back into the soil, and voila, we've got beautiful organic matter back into the soil. But right now is the time to do it. After you've harvested those vegetables, use a cover crop. Replenish those nutrients and add that organic matter to your soil. There are really some unusual spring flowering bulbs that you maybe want to consider for use in your garden. And here's one of my favorites. This is Ixias. And these flower for about 2 months late in the spring, usually after the tulips and the daffodils and the hyacinths are all through flowering. And because of their long lasting ability, they're not only beautiful in the garden, but they make excellent cut flowers. So consider them for that purpose too. And they grow about 18 inches high, about 1.5 feet. Here's a really unusual early spring flowering bulb. This is what's called the species crocus or bunch crocus. And they flower very early, but they come in, as you can see, some really unusual colors. Some of them even brown in colors, and they're really pretty. And here's another nice one for early spring color in the garden, and it's the Anemone blonda. This is a mix that I'm showing you here, but they come in individual colors too. And they blow in the wind, and they're really pretty because of the bright flowers and the way they move too. And they grow about usually 4 to sometimes 6 inches in height. And here's an unusual bulb. This is called the Imperial Crown Lily, or Fritillaria imperialis. This is a variety called rubra because it has red flowers, but there are also some that are orange and some that are yellow. And they say that if you plant this bulb in the ground, it'll help repel moles and gophers because it puts a gas out into the surrounding soil and they don't like the smell of it. This is a very low growing species tulips called tarda, and you can see multiple flowers from the bulb. They're really neat. So let's get busy. As you can see, these are pretty well through flowering, these annuals, and this is of course the time of the year when the annuals are through that we kind of pick them out of the ground. And we'll just quickly do a little bit of cultivating here and get a weed or two out. And then basically all I'll do is just a little basic planting when it comes to crocus, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do here. We'll just make a little planting hole. I'll take a little soil dust to protect the bulbs from insects and diseases, and just a little bit of bulb fertilizer. And then I'll kind of mix that around in that planting soil, like so. And then the crocus, as you can see, always in planting bulbs, the important thing to remember is that we plant them 3 times deeper than the greatest diameter of the bulb. So as you can see, these crocus are very, very small. The pointed end is always up, and we'll just set them in there. I'll plant maybe, about 6 or 8 in that one planting hole, being certain that they don't touch each other. And since they're mixed colors, we're going to get a nice combination of colors from this little group planting. See, what have I got in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, we got to have an odd number, so we'll put a 9th one in. And then simply cover over the top. And if I wanted to, I could put winter flowering pansies in this planting too. But now's a great time to select some of those unusual bulbs and plant them into the garden. Fall is the best time of the year to take care of the lawn, probably the most important time of the year, in fact, because anytime the temperature is above 45 degrees during the winter, roots develop. And the better root system, the easier it is to maintain your lawn in the future, and the better looking it'll be as well. So what I like to recommend is that you cut out a piece of the turf like so. maybe about a 4 or 6 inch square, and examine it. Actually bring it up here where you can see it. And you'll notice that thatch always lays right below the blades of the grass. Now this doesn't have any thatch. Well, it's maybe about a 1/4 of an inch or so. Not enough to bother with. If you get about a 1/2 inch or more of dead grass or thatch, then you should thatch the lawn, or some people say dethatch the lawn or aerate the lawn. That's really important. But you can see that's soil, so the grass is really doing well. Now the other thing that we'll do is examine the bottom portion here and see if there are any holes that insects might be in, or any insects period. The next thing we'll do is to turn it over and examine the turf. And I'm a little bit concerned here because this grass seems to be laying down. And I like to have the grass blades stand straight up. Usually when it lays down, it indicates that you're cutting the grass too tall. So lower the mower if that's the case, because we want the grass to stand up. If it lays down, then it's more susceptible to disease, and it's also more susceptible to different types of weeds infesting it. So it's really important to take care of that. Now we know what's going on. And by the way, if you're not sure after examining all of this, take this sample to your local nursery or garden center and have the nurseryman or a nursery lady, person on staff, take a good look at it, make an on-the-spot diagnosis for you. And then we can just bring it home, put it right back in place and water it in. You won't even know that that piece of turf is gone. Now, also, if you do have a thatch problem, one of the things you can do is actually aerate with an aerating tool. And what this does is this actually pulls a plug about the size of my little finger right out of the turf. Another way to use is with a pitchfork or a manure fork to perforate the soil. And then of course when you get through, rake it all away. Fall fertilizing is important once again to get the turf into tip-top shape. This area has just been fertilized. In fact, it was mowed yesterday. But maybe the most important thing of all is this, is to take some reseeding grass seed and overseed the area. It's a very simple process. All you do is to spread the seed out like so. And in broadcasting the seed like that, that'll fill in the thin spots in the lawn. It'll also make the lawn so dense that it's difficult for weeds or moss, either one, to grow. Take care of that lawn now, and boy, you'll have a beautiful lawn next spring. This is one of my favorite segments when I get to answer some of your gardening questions. And the first one today is about ground covers. Do you have any suggestions as to a ground cover that I could use on a flat surface and another ground cover that I could use between stepping stones? Yes, absolutely. This is a great one. This is Kinnikinick. Archistophilus is the botanical name. This one you can use hanging down over a rockery. You can use it as a flat surface. You can't walk on it, but here's one that you can walk on. And this is thyme. This is a great one for between stepping stones or in the patio area or just in a bed like this. This happens to be a variety called woolly thyme, and it doesn't bloom very often, but if it does, it's a white flower. There are some gorgeous varieties that have pink flowers, white flowers, lavender flowers, some that are even red, so they're really super. By the way, as long as I'm here, let's get these dead flowers. This is the time of the year when we have to do a little bit of grooming in the garden too. Now our next question is about New Guinea impatiens. Can I save the New Guinea impatiens in my garden? Yes, look at these back here. I've got one down there and then this beautiful pink one here. The foliage on the New Guinea impatiens is gorgeous, but the flower is just outstanding on them. Now the important thing is that you want to pot these up and get them into the house before any chance of frost. Frost will ruin them, but these are really nice plants to use for indoor color during the winter months. They're really super plants. And they come in a whole wide range of colors, plus some of them have beautiful foliage colors, so they make a great indoor plant. They won't flower this prolifically indoors, but will flower a little bit all winter long. Now, keep them out of direct sunlight. Get it where they get lots of light. Don't misunderstand me, but they don't need to be in a window where they get sun through the window during the winter. Notice here also, this is not a question today, but the blackberries are coming into this planting. Boy, this is a perfect time to get rid of blackberries because the growth is now back into the plant to build strength into the root system for next spring. So any kind of a herbicide that you use on them will take it back into the plant itself. And our third question today is about lilacs. And the question is, we have some lilac leaves that are blighted. What's the problem and what should we do about it? Well, you can see here that the leaves on this one are kind of striped like that. That's caused by an insect, not a blight. Blight usually takes over most of the leaf and it puckers up in the center. But this is what's called a leaf miner. And the insect, I think if we open this up, has already, yes it has, it's already left. So there's useless to do anything now, we'll treat it next spring. And those are just a few of the questions that you've asked in recent times. One of my favorite plants is the heather, and there are varieties that flower at the different times of the year. Here's a few that flower in late summer and early fall. This is a variety, for example, called Anna Marie, and it grows about 12 inches high and is known to bloom in September and October. You can see some of the foliage spikes are tall enough that they could be cut and used as cut flowers. Now, all the varieties of heather grow in full sun or partial sun and shade in soil that's well drained and lots of organic humus. Here's one that has kind of an interesting name. It's called Spring Cream, even though it flowers in August and September. It grows about 20 inches high. And again, the spikes are high enough that you can use it as a cut flower. And often people don't think about heather as cut flowers. They really are very, very pretty, not only in the garden, but as cut flowers. And then here's a third variety. And this one blooms in September and October, and it's listed as a red. I think it's more of a purple lavender maybe in color. It's called Rhoder October actually, and it's an excellent variety for late autumn color in the garden. It grows somewhere in the neighborhood of just a little under 2 feet in height. Really very, very nice. And then let's talk a second about bulbs too, because this is the time of the year when you'd want to plant out, for example, your hyacinths for their fragrance and beauty in the garden. One of the bulbs that's often overlooked is this one, and that's the ranunculus. They flower prolifically. And along with that is this one, the anemones. They're very, very pretty and flower for a long period of time as well. And one that we often overlook and don't use as much as we should, of course, are the Dutch iris, the bulb type iris. They're very pretty in the garden and in arrangements too. And then for that early color in the garden, you plant out the crocus, of course. And tulips and daffodils and the other spring flowering bulbs can be planted now. That's my choices for plants of the week this week. Today we're in the north end of Boise, Idaho, at the home of Jim and Stella Schneider. And how long have you folks been here?
In this house, in this yard, we've been here for 3 years.
And how long in this particular part of the garden?
Oh, this garden, the kitchen garden, started immediately when we moved in 3 years ago. The rest of the yard is evolving slowly.
This is a beautiful area. I think you've combined beautifully not only the vegetables, but annuals and perennials as well.
Yeah.
And this is an area that you look out onto, isn't it?
From my kitchen window, I look out into this area, and it's important that it be pretty.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're a painter or an artist.
Yes, I am.
And so you've kind of sculptured with the plants a
Well,
very scenic
I
setting.
pay attention to where the colors are and so forth, but I also want the flowers in with the vegetables to bring the bugs into the garden. And we let certain things go to seed, especially for certain bugs.
Sure.
You know, the small flowered things, the herbs, oregano, carrots, garlic, things that maybe you don't normally think of as flowers.
Sure.
We enjoy as flowers. And then I do plant specific flowers.
Now, here in the Boise area, do you find any climatic challenges to gardening?
Well, there's a very short season.
Oh, yes.
And we never know how short it will be.
Sure.
But other than that, no, it's really wonderful.
What about soil preparation?
We live in the north end where the soil is very nice. It has lots of organics from old trees where the leaves have fallen for years, but we still continually amend with compost and peat moss. But it's fertile. It's very fertile soil.
And Jim was mentioning that you collect the leaves at the end of the season and also spread them out over the garden.
We spread them over the garden when the flowers are pulled out, and they lay there all winter. And then in the spring, Jim goes in with the lawnmower and just mulches them. And we pull them apart to make rows.
But you leave the rest of them there?
We leave the rest of them there.
Okay.
And then we continue to mulch with compost and grass clippings all summer to keep the weeds down.
Now this area is primarily vegetables and flowers. What are your favorite plants?
Oh, that's terribly difficult.
Is it?
For flowers, I love the delphiniums. I like color, so I let things like the amaranth grow when I have no use for it except the color that it's there. I love that. And perilla, because it has a nice reddish leaf. Contrasts of color in the gardens.
Stella, you know what I like about the garden particularly is the idea that you've used lots of textures and the color combinations, and that really makes it
I think that's
beautiful.
important to me.
You bet. Thanks, Stella. That's all the time we have today. Hope you can join me at the same time next time for Gardening in America. And remember, our relationship with the planet today is tomorrow's future. Have a great week.